Hi everyone, here we are back with chapter 12, talking about motivation. Motivating workers in the workplace, super important, because not everyone necessarily wants to go there every day. And you also need to understand what motivates people so you can understand how to reward or benefit, what kind of benefits to give them. Okay, so let's just talk about motivation in general. It looks like a little model here. There are I don't know why that's not turning up on the slide. It printed it out. That's strange. But psychological processes that arouse and direct goal-directed behavior. Not sure why that's so funny like that, but anyway. Okay, so there's personal factors and contextual factors. We've talked about the personal factors before: personality, ability, what your core self-evaluations are. We talked about the efficacy, self-efficacy, self-esteem, emotions, attitudes, and needs. So that's that's the one side of motivation. The other side of motivation is what's going on in the context, what's going on in the organization, and that's going to influence interplays with what's going on. Okay, so let's take a look here. Motivation, what it is, why it's important. So essentially, there are extrinsic rewards that things that you receive from others for performing a task: pay, benefits, time off, that kind of pat on the back, that kind of thing. Intrinsic rewards are this idea that the people don't, personal satisfaction that someone receives from doing a job, the kind of self-satisfaction that maybe you're taking care of an unfulfilled need. So you have an unfulfilled need. So that motivates you to set ways to satisfy the need. You behave in a certain way, and then you get the rewards, intrinsic or extrinsic. So why is motivation important? Because you want people to be a part of your organization and contribute to the organization and be a positive influence on other people in the organization and be engaged and all that kind of thing. And if people aren't motivated, they're not going to do what's best for you. And they're probably going to participate in these counterproductive negative organizational citizenship behaviors and all that kind of thing. So you want to know what is it that keeps people going and coming back to work. All right, so we're going to talk about essentially 4 different types of theories about motivation. We're going to go through them one by one: content, process, job design, and reinforcement. So we'll go through and take a look at that. So content perspectives are theories that emphasize needs that motivate people. So a need is physiological or psychological deficiency that arouses some kind of behavior. And content theorists are going to ask themselves, what kinds of needs motivate people in the workplace? So, for example, we talked about, in chapter 2, we talked about theory X and theory Y. What's the idea that theory X is that, in terms of, people are unmotivated and lazy. In theory Y is this idea that it's up to the organization to challenge people. So there are some other theories that we talk about. Maslow's need hierarchy, which we've talked about before and we'll talk about again. McClelland's acquired needs theory, Dichi and Ryan's self-determination theory, and Hertzberg's TwoFactor theory. So we're just going to take a quick look at Maslow's need hierarchy. We've gone through it again. It's the idea that starts at the physiological and it goes up to the self-actualization. So as I said, we can apply this. When we talked about this before earlier in the semester, and we also, as I said, talked about it in marketing. But so what are some ways, for example, that managers can help satisfy these needs for, physiological, that, you're providing pay for people, safety, job security, certain types of insurance, pension plans, work safety, love need or social needs. This idea that office parties, team softball teams, volunteer groups that will get together. Esteem needs, some sort of bonuses or employee recognition, and then self-actualization. Giving someone an opportunity to leave so they can pursue a personal dream they have, or trying to fit them into a job that is more aligned with their skills and interests. Okay, so that's one theory, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All right, McClelland's theory is a little different. So he has these three things. It's affiliation, achievement, affiliation, and power. So achievement is this idea that you are really driven to get things done. Affiliation is that you're really interested in relationships, and power is this idea that you want to control other people. So everyone is motivated by different ways. So, for example, someone who might have affiliation, desire for warm, friendly relationships, well, that person might be really great in sales. Or achievement, they might, you want to give someone that they don't really care about. It's being with people isn't as important, so you might want to give them a really challenging task that requires a lot of alone time, that kind of thing. And then power, power sometimes can be seen as a negative. Is the ability to influence other or have a positive influence on someone's life. If you feel you have a need for power, a lot of people who say work in nonprofits or work in direct service to individuals, or customer service people who want to really help people out. Okay, so Dietschy and Ryan's self-determination theory. Self-determination theory essentially focuses primarily on intrinsic motivation. Those are the things within us, and rewards, such as feeling independent, rather than an extrinsic motivation and rewards, such as money or fame. An intrinsic motivation is longer lasting than extrinsic motivation and has a more positive impact on task performance, generally speaking. So this idea, we have three innate needs: competence, that you feel qualified and capable; autonomy, that they have some sort of freedom people have some sort of freedom and discretion to make decisions; relatedness, that you have some sort of attachment and connection with others. Okay, now there's a Hertzberg's two-factor theory, and essentially that there are the hygiene factors and motivating factors. The hygiene factors are associated with job dissatisfaction. So essentially, until the hygiene factors are met, no one will be happy. And motivating factors are associated with job satisfaction, and that affects essentially reward and performance. So let's take a look at. There's a video. Not a video, a visual here. So motivating factors. Let's look at the hygiene factors first. Pay and security. If you don't feel like you're being paid enough, you're going to be dissatisfied and you're never going to be happy. You're never going to be able to reach the idea of the motivating factors. If the working conditions aren't good, if you don't like the people that you work with, that can be a problem. Policies, your supervisor, all those things, unless they're met and there's some match, it's just going to cause job dissatisfaction. Whereas motivating factors are things that are more they have to do with a variety of different things, not the least of which is self-esteem, and people's need for achievement. We would talk about with Maslow's need hierarchy. This idea of esteem needs as well. So if you don't meet the hygiene factors, you're going to have job dissatisfaction, and the only way you're going to create job satisfaction is by providing these motivational factors. Okay, let's take a look at all of the theories together. You can take a look. So McClelland and Dietschy and Ryan are very high on Maslow's hierarchy, need hierarchy. Hertzberg sort of cuts it in the middle. It breaks them both in half, that those hygiene factors, again, if the safety and physiological things aren't taken care of, people are just not going to be happy ever in a job. Okay. So process perspectives, again, concerned with the thought processes by which people decide how to act and how employees choose behavior to meet their needs. And then we're going to talk about a couple different process theories: equity or justice theory, expectancy, and goal-setting theory. We're going to go through them one by one. Okay, so equity theory, it's a model of motivation that explains how people strive for fairness and justice. So what is it that they feel like they're being treated properly? it's unequal to everybody else. So it's the idea, based on the idea that employees are motivated to see fairness in the rewards they expect for a task performance and are motivated to resolve feelings of injustice. So equity theory is based on cognitive dissonance. We talked about that in the previous chapter. It's a psychological discomfort that people experience between their cognitive attitude and incompatible behavior, that's the discomfort. And it's the discomfort that motivates them to take action to maintain consistency between their beliefs and their behavior. So essentially, when we're victimized by unfair social exchanges, I was way overcharged for that car repair. A resulting cognitive dissonance prompts us to correct the situation, whether it's slightly changing our attitude or behavior, and like I'm not going to go there again, or I'm going to give them a really bad rating, or sometimes it could be also in the extreme in terms of sabotaging or some kind of workplace violence. So let's look a little bit more at equity and justice theory. That there are the inputs, what you're putting into the job. So it could be experience, it could be time, effort, training, intelligence, seniority, that kind of thing. And the outputs, like what you think you're getting out of the job. So are the outputs that you receive from the organization equal to what you put in? So then you do this comparison. And if you see that there's equity there, then you're happy. If you see there's inequity, then you're unhappy. So some ways to reduce employee inequity. So they'll reduce their inputs. There's some way employees reduce it. They'll reduce the inputs. They'll do less work. They'll take longer breaks. They'll call in sick. They'll try to change the outputs or the rewards they receive. They'll try to get a raise. They'll exaggerate how hard they work so they can complain that they're not paid what they're worth. They'll change the object of comparison, so they may compare themselves with another person instead of the original one. And they'll leave the situation, they'll quit, they'll transfer, they'll shift to a different reference group. Okay, justice theory. So there's this idea of distributive justice, procedural justice, and interactional justice. So distributive justice are rewards being given out fairly. So is everybody in the sales department getting the same kind of commission, or certain people getting more than others? Procedural justice, is there a process for handing out rewards? What's the actual process in place for deciding how people are going to get paid? And then interactional justice, am I being treated fairly when the rewards are being given out? So there are some lessons from equity and justice theories. One is employee perceptions really count. It's important as a manager that you manage those perceptions. Employees want a voice in decisions that affect them. Employees should be given some sort of appeals process to go through. How the leader behaves really matters. And making sure that you have a climate for justice is very important. People want to be treated fairly. People want to be, we're all in our country, we're all considered equal. And people just want to have an opportunity and make sure that we're being treated the same way as other people. Okay, expectancy theory is this idea that people are motivated by two things: how much they want something and how likely they think they are to get it. And people will make the choice that promotes that promises the greatest reward only if they think they can get it. Okay, we'll look at a little visual of expectancy theory. So expectancy is a belief that a particular level of effort will lead to a particular level of performance. Instrumentality is the expectation that successful performance of the task will lead to the desired outcome. And valence is whether or not it's important to you. For some people, maybe certain things are not important. So, for example, maybe for some people, getting a preferred parking spot is not important. Or, for some people, getting the reward is not important. So, but for other people, it really is super important. So all of the expectancy kind of goes into all of these things. All of these things, go into expectancy. So, again, using it to motivate employees, what is it that people value? So, do they want pay? Do they want increased pay? Do they want a bonus? Do they want recognition? Do they want more time off? What are the job objectives and performance level that you desire? So you need to clearly define performance objectives and determine what performance level or behavior you want to show so you can tell your employees what they need to do to attain the rewards. And are the rewards linked to performance? This is a big one. People, you get the performance you reward, so you want to make sure that they're lined up. So if you are looking for enhanced customer service, then you want to make sure you reward customer service. If you're looking for, increased sales, and you want to make sure you're, looking at increased sales, that kind of thing. And then the other question is, do employees really believe that you'll deliver the right rewards for the performance? So that's what this idea of credibility, and your employees have to believe that you have the power, the ability, and the will to give them rewards you promise for the performance you're requesting. Okay, moving on to goal-setting theory. Goal-setting theory suggests that employees can be motivated by goals that are specific and challenging but achievable. Remember, we talked about goals before, and SMART goals, and making sure that people know exactly what they're supposed to be expecting. We talked about management by objective. Okay, so practical considerations and goal setting theories, they should be specific. We talked about this. Certain conditions are necessary for goal setting to work, so you have to make sure you give people the opportunity, the right tools and opportunity and time to achieve their goals. They should be linked to an action plan, and there should be feedback. Okay, so job design. We also talked about job design earlier. That's when we talked about human resources. It's a division of an organization's work among its employees. So you want to make sure that work is divided equitably and logically among people, and you want to make sure, if you do this properly, then people will have some sort of, they'll have increased satisfaction and performance. So there's also, there's 2 techniques that people go about this: fitting people to jobs, which is scientific management. We talked about that earlier. And then fitting jobs to people, which is job enlargement and job enrichment. Job enlargement consists of increasing the number of tasks in a job to increase variety and motivation. We're not robots. We do need variety and motivation in our work. And then job enrichment consists of building into a job motivating factors like responsibility, achievement, recognition, stimulating work, advancement. These are the things that speak to the intrinsic rewards that people look for. Let's just briefly look at the characteristics of a job. If you go into human resources, or even if you're trying to develop a job for someone in your department, you want to make variety, skill variety, task identity, task significance, and autonomy. So and feedback. And then these will produce meaningful work, responsibility, and then making sure that people understand if they're doing their work the correct way. So the goal, of course, is motivation, satisfaction, low absenteeism. Okay, so reinforcement theory essentially talks about operant conditioning, this idea that and law of effect. So this idea of reinforcement is that both of them are concerned more with how the consequences of a certain behavior affect the behavior in the future. So essentially, operant conditioning is the process of controlling behavior by manipulating its consequences. So, the classic example with operant conditioning is, you give the dog food, you ring a bell, and you give the dog food, and then eventually, every time the dog hears the bell ring, their mouth waters, and so they're interested. They start to salivate, and it's a positive response. So every time with reinforcement theory. If you know that you behave in a certain way, you anticipate what the outcome is going to be. So, and the law of effect. And so, operant conditioning really is part of it rests on Thorndike's law of effect, which says behavior with favorable consequences tends to be repeated, while behavior with unfavorable consequences tends to disappear. So let's talk about 4 different kinds of reinforcement: positive, negative, extinction, and punishment. Positive reinforcement is using positive consequences to strengthen behavior, giving someone extra time off, maybe giving them a raise. Negative reinforcement is by withdrawing something. Negative reinforcement is by strengthening behavior by withdrawing something negative. So, for example, you no longer have to, work on Saturdays, or you can now work first shift instead of third shift, whatever. Extinction is this idea is basically making sure that you ignore behavior, and so it's not reinforced, and that's a way that it won't continue. And then punishment is by representing something negative or withdrawing something positive. So maybe the punishment would be, now you have to work weekends, or now you've got to we're moving you to second shift instead of first shift, or we're sending you to an area that's, an office that's far, a plant or an office that's far away. Or it may be that, that you get your parking privileges revoked or something like that. Okay, so this is just, again, a chart. I always like to have a chart, because it gives you an example here: positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, extinction, and punishment. Again, it's just a little bit more detail. You can take a look at that. It's right from the book. Okay, so reinforcement to motivate employees. Positive reinforcement, you usually reward only desirable behavior. You give rewards as soon as possible. You be clear about what behavior is desired. You have different rewards and recognize individual differences. And then with punishment, you only punish undesirable behavior. You give reprimands or disciplinary actions as soon as possible. Be clear. Administer punish in private. That's very important. And combine punishment and positive reinforcement together. Okay, so there are other ways also to reward using compensation. Again, just increase the monetary rewards. Non-monetary incentives might be, just those things: work-life balance, maybe giving people time off, ability to expand skills, offering training, offering a positive work environment, helping people find meaning in their work, that kind of thing. So different types of compensation plans. Again, we could just go through this. This speaks also to, we talked about with human resources, but these are essentially different ways to pay people. Pay for performance, piece rate, and based on, if you produce X number of items, we'll give you X amount. A commission, bonus, profit sharing, in terms of how much, having stock opportunity to buy stock. Gain sharing, same thing with ownership, stock options, pay for knowledge. All these things are ways to increase. Pay for knowledge as employees' pay is tied to a number of job relevant skills or academic degrees they earn. So these are different ways, different types of compensation plans. So non-monetary, again, we go through the benefits designed to help employees balance work and life. They maybe flex time, vacation, sabbaticals, again, training, tuition reimbursement, having, in terms of well-being, providing sense of satisfaction. Okay, meaningfulness, again, we talked a little bit about this. The sense of belonging and serving something that you believe is bigger than yourself, being part of something that's bigger. Suggestions. So some suggestions are: identify activities. If you want to find meaning in your work, think about activities that you really love, and then to find out what your natural strengths are, and then try to work around that, and then go out and help someone. Essentially, research shows that people derive a sense of meaningfulness from helping others, and that it creates an upward spiral of positivity. So there's, never hurts to help someone else. And also, I really encourage you, when if you're not already in a job, or you're thinking to change your jobs, think about how you spend your time, and think about what it is that you're good at and what it is that you enjoy doing, and that will help you to find meaning and satisfaction in what you do for a living. Okay, that's it. Thanks, guys. Wrapping up chapter 12.